In this video, I want to explain the mathematical basis for struggle, imperfection, suffering, and problems. You and I, and everyone alive on the planet today, will struggle, will suffer, will live in an imperfect world. And it's important to understand the geometry of that, the mathematics behind that statement, because it all begins with the one, with the uninterrupted ecology, the whole. And the whole is perfect. Reality is perfect. Grace is natural, right? Everything is, and there's absolutely no struggle between reality and reality. We, as human beings, invent the perception of struggle by creating a model of reality that is angular, that is digital, in an ecological whole, in an ecological framework. And the model is one of language, which translates into one of thought. Right? Reality is, but we interject into the isness of reality distinctions. We say this is black, this is white, this is up, this is down. We cut the one into two with language. And we construct a model of reality through the symbol of language, right? We divide the one into a pattern. Now, having created a pattern, having superimposed a pattern of language onto the uninterrupted whole, we encounter resistance, right? Because just because we divide the one into two doesn't mean that it's actually two parts. It means that we're now looking at reality through the lens of an illusion created by language. And the gap between the illusion of our model of reality created by words and reality, the uninterrupted whole, the undifferentiated ecology, is a source of tension because we don't try and relate to reality. We try and relate to our model of reality, which is the way that our minds have told us reality should be. If I create a square model of reality by dividing the one into four, for example, you can see the problem. Look at all this area outside the square, right? There's at least 30% of reality that doesn't fit into my model of reality. And it not only doesn't fit into the model, which means it's invisible, which means it's unconscious, meaning I'm not conscious of what doesn't fit into my model. Because if I was conscious, I couldn't hold on to my model. And reality is so vast, so complex, that I require a model to be able to conceptualize that which I cannot experience directly. To experience reality directly is to be divine, is to be God, in all of its complexity and dimensionality. And it's beyond words. There aren't enough words in all the languages invented throughout history. There isn't enough time to put reality into words. It doesn't fit. So what does fit into words is a vastly reduced, a vastly dumbed down story or narrative about reality, a model, much like a Google map, right? If Google had to process how many ants were walking out of an anthill on the way to your destination on Google Maps, it would crash the chip, right? See, Google can process the names of streets and whether to take a right and a left turn. It can manage a dumbed-down version of reality, but Google cannot begin to process reality. How many subatomic particles are in a single finger? That's reality. How many atomic particles are in a finger? That's reality. How are they moving in a given moment? That's reality. The word finger is a joke compared with reality. It's not even 1% of 1% of 1% of the reality of a finger. It doesn't communicate the smell of a finger, the taste of a finger. But does the finger have a taste, have a smell, have a sound, have a texture? But that's not captured. 99.9999999% of the reality of a single finger is beyond the word. It isn't captured by the word. Just like 99.99999% of the reality of houses and the people in them and their feelings. The number of pine cones on the trees that you drive by isn't captured by Google Maps. The only thing captured by Google Maps are stoplights, stop signs, numbers. 22B Elm Street is the abbreviation of more than 10 trillion pieces of data occurring in every single millisecond at that address, right? And the address isn't even real. It's just a symbol for an area within the uninterrupted ecology that cannot exist without every other part of the uninterrupted ecology. So that's why there is struggle. There is imperfection. There will be struggle. There will be imperfection. The conscious mind is built on the foundation of language, which is an illusion. Language is a crude, dumbed-down version that captures less than 1/10, less than 100th, less than 10,000th of the reality it's trying to communicate. Language can't keep up with the subatomic particles in a single finger for a single second. There's too much going on in there for us to grasp it consciously. So it's a placeholder, that thing, a finger. What is it? It's that pointy bit, right? But the pointy bit isn't real, right? A finger can't exist without a hand. A hand can't exist without a body. It's an illusionary line. It's an arbitrary line. It's useful, but arbitrary. It's not real. So when we understand that even the most sophisticated human beings who ever have lived, live, and will live are operating within a system of consciousness that is based on the illusionary separation of what is from what is, the illusionary distinction, right? It's an illusion to pretend that this vest is separate from this turtleneck. They're both linked with gravity. They're both in the light spectrum. They're both linked to my body. But we pretend that this vest has nothing to do with this turtleneck. We pretend that it's separate, and that pretense, while useful, isn't real. Nothing is separate. Nothing doesn't even exist. It's an idea. So when we try to reconcile, it's like bookkeeping. Bookkeeping, the books of a company, aren't real. It says we have a net profit of $230,000. Well, what's a dollar? Is it the paper? Is it the serial number? Is it a balance in the account? Is it real? Well, it's a symbol for what it can purchase, right? We list out these ideas. It could purchase 3 cars, or this or that. But is a car real? Of course not. Car is just a sound. It's 99% of our reality, of our consciousness of reality, is virtual. I'm not even here. You're not even there, right? Because who are you? You're a figment in my imagination. As we talk about cars that neither one of us are touching or in, that may not even exist. And yet we want that story, the story we're making up, to accurately reflect an uninterrupted ecology that was never divided. We divided our perception with language. So our consciousness has divided. But the uninterrupted whole, the undifferentiated ecology, the totality of what is, the sphere, has never been broken. We can say the words cut the earth in half. We can develop the idea based on an imagination. But the reality is that if we did cut the world in half, it would no longer be the world. Gravitational forces would change. The Earth's magma would shift. The temperature would no longer be the definition of a sphere, right? We need a model of reality so that we have something we are capable of grasping with our limited consciousness. And that model is constructed with language. Every model that language is capable of producing, every language, every model that has existed in the history of humanity is a flawed model because it is an incomplete model of a whole in which every single part of the whole has impact and is necessary for every other part of the whole. We have the idea of a possibility field. And we say something like, well, let's eliminate that possibility. You can't, mathematically, right? A possibility field is built out of an equation, out of a formula. If you delete one possibility in that formula, the entire formula doesn't work. The possibility, the field, collapses. So you can't delete a possibility, except in words that aren't real, that obscure parts of reality. And what happens when we've deleted a possibility in our mind? Oh, Trump could never get elected. We delete the possibility in our mind, but we don't delete the possibility. So what happens when Trump is elected, when he could never be elected, is a conflict between our map of reality and reality. And if we fight reality because it doesn't fit into our limited map and understanding of reality, a map that by definition cannot be perfect, cannot be complete, is a crude, dumbed-down version of reality. We're in a constant collision course with ourselves. We are part of reality, using a crude, dumbed-down, and incomplete map of reality, because that's all we've got to use. And as we follow our map, we struggle, we collide with the far more graceful, far more complex, far more beautiful totality of reality that we reject in order to be apart, to be separate in our minds, in order to enter the illusion of our separation from the greater parts of ourselves. We construct a map of reality based on the divisive nature of words. Then enter that lens of divisiveness, and suddenly it appears that there are lines between one thing and another, but the lines are not real. We can follow the energy of a fingernail from this location in time and space and connect to every location in time and space throughout the universe, which means there's no difference. There is no separation between this finger and every point in space and time. The difference is in our mind. And when we have a clash that's that profound, a consciousness based on separation and distinction in a reality of an undifferentiated and interconnected whole, we will be at war with reality. We will be at war with ourselves, until we put down the mantle, not before language, but on the other side of language. Before language, there is no self-awareness because there is no self. On the other side of language, there is the experience, the return of the illusion, the dissolving of the illusion of the self as we come home to the circle we never left, to the circle that has never fought us, to the circle we have always belonged to and will belong to. No matter what we do, say, think, feel, we cannot break the tether between us and God, Goddess, all that is. We can only obscure the tether with the illusion of the words that cut and divide us and separate us in our minds from ourselves.